It's my pleasure now to introduce Gil Cargil, founder and CEO of Cargil Consulting Group, and one of the top 6 speakers according to Sales and Marketing Magazine. We're running late on time, so without further ado, let me turn this over to Gil. Gil?
Good deal. Thanks for inviting me. I'm delighted to talk to everybody today, and we're going to walk you through the process of taking the data from Network Detective and turning it into a proposal that will help you close more business. From time to time, we'll miss some deals. Primarily, our prospects don't understand our language. Prospects, therefore, can't grasp the value. Many MSPs and IT consultants look like the gentleman on the screen having a headache after going out and talking repeatedly to the customer. The key, the secret sauce, is to have a proposal. Now, back when these gentlemen were selling, you didn't need to have a proposal primarily because they had no competition. Clearly, the world's changed, and we're not in that position. So one of the things that you should address in writing to every one of your prospects is understand the cost of no. Make sure your prospects understand what it will cost them in terms of cash, time, dollars, headaches, or risk to refuse an opportunity to do business with you. Now, Network Detective reports will provide you with the proof of those costs. Missing patches, what's the exposure to that? What are the HIPAA issues, the FINRA issues? All of these things you can talk to, and what they do is they actually create a concept called FUD. FUD stands for fear, uncertainty, and doubt. And that is something that I want you to communicate to the prospects, because I want them to understand that if they turn you down, they increase their costs, their risk, their headaches, and their exposure. There are 2 types of proposals that we'll discuss briefly. And by the way, everyone on the call is eligible to get 16 hours of recorded sales training. So I'm going through this at a very high level, but there's 16 modules I'll send you as audio files, and you can do a deep dive. But we have selling proposals, which are designed to help the prospect make a decision, and telling proposals, which document decisions that are 80 or 90% made prior to you meeting with the prospect. We're going to spend most of the time in the next few minutes talking about the proposals that will help you sell. The telling proposal is one that does not communicate the results. These are frequently boilerplate. And the beauty of the data that comes out of Network Detective is you can be specific down to every desktop, every device, every line of business application within your customer's company. So we're not going to share boilerplate. The telling proposal talks about speeds and feeds, and it's something that a hardware manufacturer would deliver to one of us because we understand what those speeds and feeds are. Selling proposals, on the other hand, are the bright idea that documents how the customer's business will change. We're going to document the current situation and the proposed situation. We're going to show them how you and your team will solve problems that are impacting that particular company, and you will show them how you can improve some or all of their business's operating conditions. We're going to quantify the impact to the degree possible. We're going to stress results, justify the investment, and give them what I refer to as a schedule of events. Now, one of the beauties of having a well-written proposal is it is designed to sell to the invisible decision maker. This is the man or woman that you'll never talk to. It could be your contact's boss, could be their spouse, their mentor, perhaps even a friend that they play softball with. But this kind of conversation goes on. Your contact goes to their associate, their friend, and your contact says something like, you know, I'm thinking about changing my IT support company. What do you think? Now, most of our friends will tell us to be cautious, and to err on the side of caution literally means don't change, and changing will create headaches for everyone. So you want to use this format when your prospect is seeking to solve a problem. This is the format that you'll use to demonstrate your consultative skill, your knowledge, and your ability to help your customers run their businesses better. To be a true solution, you must document the impact and the value that is brought to your customer by you and your team, the people, the products, and then most importantly, the procedures. If your proposal details these 3 P's, you will have a leg up on your competition. It's extremely useful to use this approach when the when the prospect doesn't really understand the return on investment. They know that you're better than what they have, or they hope you're better, but they don't know what the ROI will be. This will give them insight into that, and you should be capable of convincing them. The data that comes out of Network Detective will certainly help you give them the confidence that they need to make the change. But as I say in red, never use this approach if you haven't gotten an agreement with the customer that when you document their current situation, they will move forward and give you a contract. Make sure that you are documenting and remedying pain. Here's what you said when we met. Here's the exposure the Network Detective showed us. You're way over here in the red, and here's why this is bad. And I want you to document the current cost of not having a relationship with you. Now, these costs may not be invoices, but what's the cost to a company if there's a data breach that allows personally identifiable information to get out in the general public? What's the cost to a company if their data isn't backed up and secure and they lose all their data? So let's make sure that as we sit down to write a proposal, you're going to quantify their current pain based on the data that comes from Network Detective. So for instance, Network Detective may show that patches are missing or outdated on a large number of the devices in the network. Quantify that and say 85% of your patches are out of date, and that means that your system is wide open and exposed to the cyber barbarians trying to break in to steal data and personally identifiable information. Remember, results have value, and as you write your proposal, write it in American English, not in techno talk. And the conversation should always focus on the results. Do they have downtime? Are they losing time because their PCs are slow? Are they exposed to data risk? Are they backing up with thumb drives? What are the risks? And let's talk about situations that you've seen. And your proposal will become your silent salesperson. Never start writing a proposal until you've reached an agreement that they will change if and when you show them how to improve, remedy, or mitigate situations within their company as discovered and documented and detailed by Network Detective. If you haven't reached that agreement, then make sure you reach that agreement, because you're going to expose your expertise, your knowledge, and most importantly, you're going to invest your time. And I want you to be able to defend your position. Know the results that they desire. Now, in the kit that we're going to send you, you'll find some sample proposals, and they all follow this flow. They have a title page, a proprietary information disclaimer, a cover letter, a table of contents, the scope of the proposal, which essentially says, here's all the things I did to collect this data. Now, the fact that Network Detective actually did the work doesn't matter, but I want you to say that all of the printers were investigated, all of the software, all of the patches, everything is detailed in the scope, because the more comprehensive the scope of the proposal is, the more credible your conclusions and recommendations will be. Make sure you have an executive summary, a company profile on your company, and detail the service considerations that need to be undertaken to move them to the next step. Now, we also want to make sure that we describe the current method or the current situation. And essentially, that would be a section or subset of the information that you get from Network Detective. Remember, the proposal sells and Network Detective reports prove. And those are the two different functions for these documents. We want to compare the current situation to the way it will be when you're monitoring their system 24/7, 365, when you have virtualized their backup. Compare and contrast the problems and risk and productivity impacts, negative productivity impacts of the current situation compared to what you'll produce for them. Make sure you give them a detailed recommendation of what you'll do, how you'll do it, a implementation schedule, the summary of advantages based on what you've seen, and a pricing summary. So I'll walk you through each of those components real quickly, and again, just contact me and I will send you my kit, which gives you detail and more instruction. I'm cramming 16 hours of training into about 25 minutes, so obviously we're hitting the high points. The cover letter should be 3 paragraphs long. It should recap what you know about the account, and it should close with a soft pitch for the business. The executive summary will indicate why you're working with the prospect, what results you can promise, and once again, a soft pitch for their business. Now, I define a soft pitch as follows, and this is literally the words I put into my proposals. I look forward to adding your name to a rapidly growing list of productive and profitable client companies. So that's a soft pitch. I'm not demanding or closing. I'm just saying I look forward to helping you. Then we move to the table of contents, which really will facilitate your presentation. This document should become a sales tool, and we want you to view it as such. The scope of the proposal is the next section, as I indicated. It communicates how much work you did and how thorough you've been and how professional you are. Remember, at some level, there are people in your town claiming, and I underscore the word claiming, that they can fix computers better than you can. And I want you to claim and prove that you can help companies run better. So there's no shortage of people who can claim to fix computers, but with the professionalism and the detail and the documentation that Network Detective will provide you, you will be distinctly different, and I want your prospects to view you as a potential partner in helping them make more profit. Then the next section details your company. How old's the company? How many clients do you have? What kind of successes have you had? How long do your clients stay with you? Detail your bragging rights, if you will, about your company. And some of us are uncomfortable writing this section because many of us are the company. So just when you're writing your first one or two, step outside of yourself for a moment and say, if I were evaluating me as a potential employee, what are the strengths that I would bring to that relationship? Then detail how you'll work 24/7, 365, 8 to 5, help desk tickets. How do you provide your service? Once again, the more detailed you are, the more professional you look. You see, they've been exposed to competitors of yours who promised to be awfully quick, but they never showed up. They've been exposed to competitors of yours that have said, trust me, I know how to fix computers. I've got 14 dozen certifications, but they never produce the results. So show them that you have a process, a way, a procedure of doing what you do, and you'll differentiate yourself from the competition. And as Mark said a moment ago, make sure that you show them how you'll use Network Detective to keep their network optimized. Because after all, if the IT network is the center of their business, and who doesn't look at it in that way today, you should make sure that that foundation is very secure, because frail foundations produce frail buildings, and we don't want to have that. Detail the current method, and please be a reporter. Never editorialize here. This is the way they work. They may boot up their computers 20 times a day. Just report that, and then show them the proof from Network Detective to help them understand why. And again, we'll talk about the cost of the current method. Then describe the proposed method. Here's how good it will be once you've signed on and we're actually moving forward. That's where we want the customers to be. Essentially, your proposal should be a comparison of the old method versus the new method, and help them understand how you'll help them far beyond the scope that they've ever conceived of in the past. And it's always about giving them permanent, measurable improvements in one or more of their business's operating conditions. This is a blown up sample of that implementation schedule. We have a detailed one in the kit, 8.5 by 11. But it's basically 3 columns, and this is the best closing tool I've ever developed. In the left-hand column, we're going to write down in sequence the things that are required to go from the presentation of your findings to the customer has moved over to you and everything's set up and running ideally. In the middle column, we describe those activities, step 1 through step whatever. And then in the far right-hand column, we identify who's responsible for doing those activities, the customer or your team. Now, when you go through this, share it with your prospect, and more often than not, the prospect will say that they like this flow. If possible, put an exact date in for step 1, 2, 3, and 4 over there in the left. My close sounds like this. Why don't you review these dates to see if they meet with your approval? And as you folks can see, the first activity at the top of the middle column is the customer authorizes the relationship. The next section summarizes the advantages, presents cost justification. Your pricing summary is then presented at the end, and never talk about cost, talk about investment, and make sure you stress the cost to the customer of them saying no or not now. Good luck and good selling.